come together today to give our honor, to give our thanks, to give our respects to a very dear, beloved woman. Our most loved Janice Blumenthal was a dear wife, dear mother, dear grandmother, dear friend, dear many different things to many different kinds of people. And many of the people, myself, didn't know her until the last few years of her life. And I work with a lot of people of older age, people of sickness. And you certainly see that as people get older and sicker, it's hard to see their deep essence and their deep inner greatness. But there are certain people who really shine, that even with all the things that are sick and things that are not the same with their bodies, you can see the energy and the spark and the drive that their soul has. You see their love, you see their passion, you see on the outside their grace and their beauty and their just shine. And she was a lady who had all of these things. And besides these riches that she had, she was very blessed to have wonderful children and grandchildren and other family members, people who really know her, people really respect her and love her and appreciate her. So today we can look forward on this day of losing someone special to gaining a lot from them, to hearing their beautiful words, hearing their stories and inspiration that will give us comfort and strength during the loss of such a great woman. We start with a selection from the Psalms. We read Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi laksar, B'nai steshech yarbitzeni, Al mei menuchos yanachaleni. Nashi eshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek laman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit somavis, lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha, hema yanachamuni. Tarach lefanai shochan, neged soirai, Dishante v'shemen roshi, kosi revaya, achtov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavte b'beis adinoi, la'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in right paths for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou hast set before me a table in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's a Jewish custom that at the funeral service of any woman, certainly a special woman like Janice, that we say the Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor. It's also something we say at the Shabbat table, Friday night, after the woman has worked so hard, making a beautiful meal and taking care of her family all the week. We sing to her and we praise her. So I'll say the following in Hebrew and then we will translate in English. Eshet Chayil miyimsa v'rachok mipnei nihim michra batach balev bala v'shalo lo yekzar. Gemal sotai v'loira, kol yamei chayecha, darshat zemer ufishtim, betas bechapetz kapecha, haisa keni yaisaicher, mi merchak tavi lachma, betakam be'ahid laila, betitin teref, lavesa rachak narosecham, zamama sade v'tikechechu, mi pri chapechanat karem, hagra be'oiz masnecha, Betamei tzresecha, tama ki toiv sachra, lo yechbe balayla, neira yadecha shilcha v'kishor, v'kapecha samchu fale, kappa parseliani, ve'yadecha shilcha li'evyon l'sira mi'beisa mishaleg, kigol beisa levushanim, marvadi masasala, sheish vargaman levusha, noda bisharim bala, Bishifto him ziknei aret sadi masasavetim kor vehagar nasnu kanani oz vehadar levusha betis haik leyoim acharon. Pascha picha pascha behachma besayras chesed al yeshoina tafia halicha ispesa belechem atzuso sochel kamu v'necha v'yeshura balan v'yehalel rabus banus asahayul biatali sakulana sheker achein v'hevel ayofi isha yiras adonai He sees halel tenula mi priyadecha vi halelucha ishari masecha. An accomplished woman who can find far beyond pearls is her value. Her husband's heart relies on her, and he shall lack no fortune. She repays his good, but never his harm, all the days of her life. She seeks out wool and linen, and her hands work willingly. She rises while it's nighttime and gives food to her household. She envisions a field and buys it. From the fruit of her handiwork, she plants a vineyard. With strength she girds her loins and invigorates her arms. Her hand she stretches out to the distaff, and her palms support the spindle. She spreads out her palms to the poor, and extends her hands to the destitute. She fears not snow, for her entire household, is clothed with scarlet wool. She makes a cloak to sell and delivers a belt to the peddler. Strength and majesty are her raiment. She joyfully awaits the last day. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and a lesson of kindness is on her tongue. She anticipates the ways of her household and partakes not of the bread of laziness. Her children arise and they praise her. Her husband, he lauds her. Many have amassed achievement, but you have surpassed them all. False is grace and vain is beauty. A God-fearing woman, she should be praised. Give her the fruits of her hand, and let her be praised in the gates by her very own deeds. Sometimes as the rabbi, you fret a little bit about giving the eulogies for a service. You hope that there can be a family member who can just speak really well and be very, very good at explaining and tell stories and really explain who the person is. And a lot of the time it's not really possible. It's too difficult to time. And most people don't have that ability to do so. But I think that Janice was blessed with children who are very much the very intuitive type, very expressive type, very good at going deep and understanding people, their character, their personality, what they've been through, what their life has been like, and how that makes them as a person. And I think that they are people who really understand their mother. They really understood what she went through, what her life was like, the good and the bad and the challenges, and they have learned so much from her because they really, really paid attention to her as a person, and they really respected and loved and admired all the things that their mother has done for herself and done for them. And to be honest, it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing to hear them speak, hear them tell about their mother with such reverence and joy and love, and they really could see her wisdom and her greatness. So it's a real blessing to be able to now call upon a good friend of mine, Michael, who we've gone through a lot of different things together. And he's always been a good friend to me and a good friend to many people. And so he's going to share with you on behalf of his sister and himself some words. And he's going to come up along with his son.
First and foremost, I want my sister Stevie to know how much we appreciated her unwavering, unrelenting commitment to my mom, especially as Jan moved into assisted living and later into the memory unit at the Wiles. She was the mainstay of our support, and we were all so grateful to her, all of the family. And my thanks, too, to the staff at the Wiles and to the hospice workers and to Rabbi Akiva for all of their help, and to my wife Bonnie, who supported me through all of this. Thank you. The following are just some of my thoughts that came to mind in reflecting about my life with my mother. As I look back and consider the events in my mom's life, the word sacrifice came most often to my mind. Perhaps maybe not in the way we all think of it in the traditional view that when we think of sacrifice, the word derives from the word whole, meaning to make sacred or holy, to draw energy from one level and invest in another to produce a higher consciousness. That is the word that comes to mind in my experience of my mom, a theme that runs constant throughout her lifetime, in her many roles and underlying her persona as a mother, as a stepmother, as a wife, a daughter, a cousin, and a friend. Born and raised in Shaker Heights, the only child to Harry and Lel Schlessel, both her parents came from large Orthodox Jewish families where there were 11 and 12 children on either side, 23 aunts and uncles. Jan's mother, originally named Julia, then later, who changed her name to Lil, came to this country in the early 1900s on a liner from across the Atlantic, from Manchester, England. She was the daughter of Harry Kaminsky, a horse trader, traded horses during the Boer War. My mom's father, Harry, came to Cleveland from the tenements of the Lower East Side of New York City, later supporting the family by running the family business, the A&W Table Mat Company, on Superior Avenue. As an only child, my guess is Jan's childhood was very lonely, and she longed for siblings. But my mom made her own way in the world, creating siblings from the many cousins in the two large families she descended from, the Schlessels and the Kaminskys. There was Janie and Judy and Ronnie, and some of them are here today, and I'm so grateful they could come. During my mother's childhood and early adolescence, she became very close to her uncle, my grandfather's youngest brother, Edward, the youngest of the 12 Schlessel children. The way she described her uncle was as if he were her closest friend, a soulmate. I got the impression that she had a crush on him when she would describe him. But unfortunately, she would lose him early in life when she learned he'd been killed in the Solomon Islands and Guadalcanal in the South Pacific in World War II. It broke her heart, and it set a theme for her lifetime. Jan was 12 and he was 22. She was 10 years younger than her Uncle Eddie. Perhaps, again, this was a sign of what would lie ahead. This devastating loss to the family, and specifically to Jan, was very painful, yet a meaningful lesson. Maybe that would prepare her for what was to come, for what was sacred to her. I'm named for that uncle. My middle name is Edward. As a child growing up, Jan dreamed of becoming a dancer with hopeful plans to attend school in New York. She loved to perform, tap, ballet, jazz, swing, and more. But her father wouldn't allow her to travel to New York. He would deny her this dream. Harry, who could be so loving, but sometimes stubborn and tough, wished otherwise for her. Jan was asked to live out a life for him, yet another sacrifice. These are often the roads less traveled, though we may not know it at the time. Later in life, this repeated when she sought a career, yet my stepfather, Stan, disagreed with her pursuit of work. A sign of the times, a sign of a man's pride, maybe, to be the sole breadwinner in the family at that time. But again, my mom persevered in sacrifice, making whole from the pieces of a shattered dream. She made the most of what she could, though she lived in the life of the shadow of her father's choice. Yet that never deterred her in showing gracious respect that she gave to him. She was very close to both of her parents. But she struggled with the conflicts that comes with growing up and growing away, and yet she never let go of honoring both her parents her entire life, a gift to make whole, a gift my mom would subtly teach her children by example. And this, I hope, was hers. That crushed her early on didn't stop her zeal for living life, which she would dedicate herself to in her family, especially her two children. And so she lived out that life in the sacred for herself within, in the truest sense of the word, balancing the tension of opposites in life, something all of us eventually have to live with at some point. Thanks, Brian. Engaged at 16 years old and married to Ted in 1948, Stevie was born in 1950. My mother was 19 years old when Stevie was born, a teen mom. Jan and Ted's first house of their own was on 189th Street in Harvard in Cleveland. And not long after I was born in 1953, my father and mother moved to their first home in Shaker Heights on Lindholm Road, in part due to my mother's insistence, ensuring her kids get a good education, which she valued dearly. She also made sure we had a Jewish education as well, at first following her parents as a member of B'nai Jeshurun and later B'rith Emeth. Married to my father, Ted, for 10 years, she divorced in 1958. She married twice and struggled in a painful divorce that tore her and the family apart. Yet her choices, in part, were always directed at other, meaning what was best for the kids. My mom remarried soon after to Stan, and they were married 36 years until Stan died in 1995. She became a stepmom to Stan's children, Pammy and Mitch. Money was always an issue in the family growing up, but my mother somehow found ways to ensure both Stevie and I had the best she could give us, often in the painful position of the middle, but always advocating for us at the same time. We couldn't afford camps growing up, like Camp Wise, or school trips out of town, but somehow she found a way to get us to some of those experiences. Not only was dancing a passion for Jan, music was a love of her life, and later she pursued painting, crafts, and even politics. She was the precinct chair for the Democratic Party in the Lomond area at Shaker. My mom was always so proud of her own mother, and we often tell the story of how Grandma Lil would sit down at a piano, and after hearing the sound of any music, she could play that song by ear. She loved it when the family would gather and sit around to listen as Grandma played the piano at events and on holidays, and then we would all sing along together, all the family. Even while in assisted living and at the memory unit, music stayed with her, one of the few activities there she regularly took part in. She also loved the movies, yet another gift she would pass on to me. My mom would always, as long as she could, remain that dancer and sing the songs of her mother. Beneath these worldly layers of my mom's persona lived a beautiful soul who also struggled and suffered intermittently. Yet she remained determined in her calling to always be mom first and foremost to my sister and I, a role she savored and was most proud of. Happiness and joy came most to her when she was among her children and later grandchildren. The years raising her kids were the sweetest life brought to her. It wasn't easy or simple being separated and later divorced, and then in blending a family and her marriage to Stan, and all the conflicts that those divisions brought. Still, she persevered to ensure Stevie and I could have a stable life. She was a grounding force for both of us, so we could survive. And while we met yesterday with the rabbi to talk about Jan, Bonnie said something about my mom that I thought was very telling. That is, that as she knew my mom as a stepmom herself, she said, my mom said to Bonnie how thankful she was that Bonnie was helping to take care of her grandkids. Jan sometimes took pleasure in the role of a housewife. Sometimes she questioned it, but she remained resolute as a mother and wife. Sometimes we didn't know nor understand the struggles our parents faced. Jan often kept the pain to herself, suffering in silence, in part to protect us, and in part because that's all she knew, and that's what she wanted. And that was how her generation often proceeded in life. Whenever she could, she took on the pain herself, trying to protect her kids from whatever suffering the world would bring, inside or outside the house. While these roles of her persona may have not always been easy, it never kept her from her desire, again, to be there for us, to ensure that her children had the best she could give them. In growing up as a teenager, I remember how much pleasure she took with all of my friends, enjoying visits when they came to the house, and being with them, and when I would tell her or they would tell her stories, not all the stories, of our experiences. My friend Ricky wrote in a text when he heard about my mom's death, "Many women do noble things, but your mom surpasses them all. She was a wonderful woman." Deep down, my mom was a very shy person, yet she learned and grew from that to be able to share more openly and to be social. She was kind, glamorous, and a gentle woman, though she could be extremely critical of herself. Most people wouldn't know that about her. She sometimes hid from the world. It was difficult looking inward for her, but again, though she suffered, she persevered. She was a woman with a beautiful spirit, yet a wounded soul. She lived on in search of meaning, and she was a survivor. She adored her grandchildren, of which there were 4, both Brian and Katie, and then later on, Jana and Jeffrey. And there was no more joy in this world than her 6 great grandchildren they gave her. This was part of the legacy that she would be most thankful and proud of, her gifts to the world, her blessings to enjoy. Even at 65, she remained the ever-present loving parent to me, sticking close by in a life-changing crisis of illness. When I was diagnosed with kidney disease, my mother, who was recently widowed, was broken that she couldn't step in to keep me from my pain. It broke her heart that in the end, she couldn't keep her children from their own pain. No parent really can. She couldn't protect one of her cubs now, but she sure could help. I remember her helping me lift these very heavy boxes of saline solution and drag them into the closet, which is what I used for dialysis at home. And I have this other vivid memory of her at the hospital in tears as I was being wheeled on a gurney to surgery for a kidney transplant. Jan, devastated from seeing one of her own now wounded and whose life might be in jeopardy, was in tears. But she was also cheering me on, as she always had. She was able to give me strength to get through. Jan had a knack for falling in love, enjoying the comfort of men, and really didn't enjoy her years alone in solitude. But again, she persisted and persevered. She kept up her dancing, attended temple groups, went to Pilates classes, continued at the country club for golf and tennis, and most importantly, she had more time for her grandkids. After Stan died, my mom would fall in love again with Les Sender and then later Leon Shepard. Even in her time with Les, she was a main caretaker as he became terminally ill and eventually died of cancer. Within and surrounded by many families, each romance gave her a sense of self again. She loved falling in love and being together with someone to appreciate life, again a sense of wholeness. And that was why, towards the end at the Wiles, when she started with assisted living 7 years ago, when there was no longer anyone to take care of, no one to be there for, and no one to come home to, she suffered. She lost her meaning. Her gift for the sacred fell away. In those final years, Jan struggled with crippling arthritis and eventually Alzheimer's, which took her away from us. She never took to being at the Wiles, apart from the homes she created in her life. She missed having the family within her own home. So again, those last years at the Wiles were tough years for her, though she never gave up hope of going home. So often she would cry out to Stevie and I, especially at the end, how much she wanted to go home. Hopefully now she is going home to that place she longed for. So those are a few events of her life and my experience of my mom. There is, of course, so much more in time that will help to give us time to heal and understand and appreciate how she lived and who she was. I'll end with where I started, about sacrifice and my mom, what is sacred and holy or whole. This is part of the legacy she shares with us, in the lesson that within both joy and the suffering that she lived, we can make meaning out of the pain as well as the happiness, searching for the sacred within. Those are the sum of lessons she leaves for me and for all of us.
I have two readings. The first is from my sister, who could not make it to the funeral today because she was crossing the bridge to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan when she learned of Jan's passing. But she is watching right now via the streaming. So these are Katie's words, and I'll try my best to read them. There are so many things I wish I had asked her, like what it felt like to want to be a dancer, but marry instead. What was it like to have two small children in the 1950s when men didn't co-parent like today? Was it maddening? Yes, it was. But I want to ask her more about how it felt. I asked her a lot of questions, but the thing about good grandparents is that they ask you all the questions, like how were we doing? What were we doing? The interests and attention fall to us. She loved us so dearly. We got to be her treasure, and it felt really good. She was also our constant. In childhoods with divorce, grandparents become a needed constant, especially during the initial transitions. She helped make us feel safe and stable. We established some lovely traditions with Jan, like dinners out and time on her plush gray velour couch. I treasure those times with her. I treasure so much about her, and I feel so grateful to have had her as my grandma. She taught me so much about being a woman, glamour and elegance, but I think there was something deeper in her edgy fashions that I truly admire and take with me, especially since my fashion sense is not as on point as hers, and that her expression and her open mind, which were both tethered and grounded in traditions, but pushed the edges in remarkable ways that kind of stuck with me, and I think others too. Fashion and makeup were like an art to her and on her. I will think of her when I see dancers, when I see glamorous women in magazines and in paintings, and I will carry her with me as I express myself in my own ways that I hope push edges in remarkable ways, but are still grounded and connectable. I could have looked at her forever, her face and style, a wonder to a little girl, but that's not how life works. I will remember her forever. She will be with us as we walk through this world. I love you, Graham. I love you. Katie. Grandma, thank you for the past 36 years of your beautiful life. My youngest memories of you involve swimming with Katie at your home on Green Road, tennis at Lake Forest, large senior dinners at Landerhaven, and high holy days at your home in University Heights. I can even recall the year I burned my finger on a cigarette lighter in the door of Stan's large sedan, a unique push and pop device all but extinct now that I will need to explain the utility of to Levi one day. When we got older, you took Katie and I to Mexico. The three of us stayed at the Cancun Palace, a luxury resort overlooking the aqua water of the Caribbean. We ate lavish breakfasts on our terrace, snorkeled during the day, and went to grand dinners at night, including our infamous mariachi dance night with our grandmother, the dancer. Katie and I remember that trip vividly. Birthdays every year involved a shopping trip to Tower City to get about anything we might need or just want. And once I could drive, you happily lent me your fancy car to impress my dates for homecoming dances. You really enjoyed taking care of us, providing for us, loving us, being a grandma. As I aged, my relationship with you and Ted evolved and grew. As a teenager, we became socialites together, and you both provided structured family for me as I became a young adult. Weekly dinners with you were standard. Even if I was with friends, we didn't cancel. They came along too. We didn't miss a week. It was so frequent I once ate 2 dinners in the same night, 1 hour apart, one with you and one with Ted. We spent our nights talking about school, music, family, dating. We were both single then. You taught me about life. You taught me about your upbringing, your family. Most times the waitresses and waiters would ask, "How old is your son?" And we didn't correct them. Even after I went off to college, we talked weekly by phone, And when I came home on breaks, we picked up our dates right back up. Those dinners meant a lot to me, Grandma. I learned a lot from you and your life among the greatest generation. Weekly allowances were a must, something you and my grandfather insisted on, and something my father only learned about later in my life. Sorry, Dad. They even continued into college and grad school by mail. You insisted. Meryl can even recall this because they only ended once I got married. Sometimes it's really tough being the only grandson. When I moved back to Cleveland for training in 2011, Meryl and I moved up the street from you in University Heights. You were ecstatic and offered your support, especially to Meryl, taking her out every week for lunch or a shopping date or dinner with Leon. It really helped us early in our marriage during a stressful time of residency, where I wasn't home much and Meryl was in a new town. We remember fondly our last date with you and Leon at Nighttown, classy as always, in 2013. You didn't miss any life events. I walked you down the aisle at Katie's wedding in Ann Arbor, and we danced at my wedding in Columbus. And you made the round-trip ride in 48 hours to Athens to watch my graduation in 2011. You were 81 years old. Grandma, you were beautiful, you were classy, you were elegant, always. The last few years of your life were tough, Grandma. Your memory faded, and your physicality did too. It frustrated you. It wasn't you per se. It wasn't how you imagined your final years. But your heart didn't change. Stevie and I had a conversation with you 2 years ago regarding end-of-life care, where I specifically asked you what you wanted if you grew more ill and if you were ready to die. In your words, you didn't want to die. You wanted to live to see your family longer, nothing more. And you did, allowing for you to meet 3 more of your 6 great-grandchildren, Isla, Remy, and Phoebe, all born within the next 6 months. Grandma, we saw your children, Stevie and Michael, look after you for the past decade in a way they never had to prior, caring for you, planning for you, fighting with you, and fighting for you. Drives across the city, Chagrin Falls, to the far west side for hair appointments because she knew it meant the world to you. And dinners at Briar Hill that were not easy logistically, so you could be part of the family get-together because he knew it meant the world to you. Hospital and doctor visits, the end-of-life decisions, none of it easy, and all of it out of love. I hope they know how much we took notice. I hope they know how much it mattered to you, for you, to me, to us. They should be proud. It gave us the past 7 years. We should all be so lucky one day. Meryl, Levi, Phoebe, and I visited you last week, just prior to your 89th birthday. You were happy to see us. Levi sang you some songs. Phoebe blew you 100 kisses. You smiled and said they were amazing, as you always did. If life has its accomplishments, this was one of its greatest. The gap between you and Phoebe is 87 years. I hope I am so fortunate one day. This was the last time I saw you, Grandma, just days before we flew out west for travel. After the kids left, I sat with you, I held your hand. I watched you sleep, and I imagine that's how you did watching me when I was a young child. I watched the beauty of my caring, loving, nurturing grandmother, my Gram, peacefully at rest. At some point I had to leave, and you said that was okay. We told each other how nice it was that we got to see each other one time more. I told you I loved you. You opened your eyes, you looked at me, and as you always said, and as I'll never forget, told me, I love you more. From this humbled grandson's heart, I am the luckiest.
So I can't help but thank Michael and Brian for the most touching remarks and all the stories from Stevie and things about Bonnie and the family as a whole. It's a big sacrifice for the kids and the grandkids to give so much of their heart and such a hard time to share with us what is so hard. But that's their life mission and life purpose, to really give honor and respect to their mother and grandma, who they love so much. So we think of them in our prayers, and we try to give them strength as we are accustomed to in consoling and guiding mourners. So we think about the bereaved. We think about her husband Stanley, a blessed memory. We think of Stevie and Michael and their spouses. We think of Brian and Katie. And we think of Jana and Jeffrey, of blessed memory. We think of the great-grandkids, Theodore, Levi, Mila, Remy, Phoebe, and Isla. And to her parents of beloved memory, Harry and Lillian. Today, following services, we will be going in procession to the Mount Olive Cemetery, where the interment will occur. And then following the interment will be a gathering at Lander Haven. That's 6111 Lander Haven Court in Mayfield Heights. That's going to be today, Thursday, until 8 p.m. There'll be refreshment and a time to share stories and to talk and support each other. And then again on Friday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Lander Haven. Friends who wish to contribute to some cause are welcome to contribute to the Kidney Foundation, a dear foundation to Janice. At this moment, we're going to please rise. We're going to say the memorial prayer. Then after the completion of the prayer, we'll just give a moment or so for the family, for people to get their things, and then we will rise again and participate in the mitzvah of escorting Janice from here to outside of the chapel. El Mali Rachamim, Shaychein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechayna, Al Kanfei Hashchina, Bimalois Kedoshim Utahirim, Kezerakia Mashirim, Es Nishmas, Janice, Bas Harry, and Lili, Shahalacha Loilama, Bavor Shanachnu Mispalin Bahaskaras Nishmasa, Began Eden Tehei Menuchasa, Lachain Bal Harachamim, Yastirecha Besisa Kanafav Leoilamim, Beyitzor Betzor Chaim Es Nishmasa, Adonai Hu Nachlasa, Vasanuach Mishkava Beshalom, Benomar, Amen. O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and the pure ones who shine like the glow of the firmament, for the soul of our most beloved Janice, the daughter of Harry and Lily, who has gone into her world and for whom we pray. May her resting place be in the Garden of Eden. May the Master of Mercy shelter her in the shelter of his wings for all eternity. And may he bind her soul in the bonds of eternal life. God is her heritage, and may she repose in peace on her resting place. And we say together, Amen. We just take a moment to get our things together, and we call forward the pallbearers, please.